Welcome back to the Wood Couture Podcast, the incredible Indian designer series, recording live here at the Andas Hotel in Aero City. We had a fantastic time. Today, we have the absolute privilege to have a power couple, Hot 100 list, and award-winning architecture firm that has been operating for the past 4 decades, at least. Let's say we have the pleasure of meeting the one and only Sonali Bhagwati and Sohrab Dalal. Welcome and thank you.
Morning.
Fantastic. I read a lot about you, and so we start with Sonali, and I think they call it the unconventional lady because I read one of your interview and saying architecture was not a safe profession, and saying going to CPT it was totally unconventional. So take me back to that journey, from that moment in time.
Um, I would always call myself the black sheep of the family because I came from a very, very uh, overly qualified and overachievers, a family of overachievers.
Right.
My father was in the judiciary, reaching to the top position. My sisters, one was a doctor, one was a lawyer. And I wanted to be nothing like that. I always had an inclination towards the arts, and I used to love painting. As a kid, also, I used to go to a place which was known to have artists coming there. And I would paint there, talk to them, and it was something that just made me very happy. Um, I had to take math and physics and chemistry in my school because that was a prerequisite for doing architecture. I hated every minute of it. It was my nemesis. And then when I went to architecture school, I said, oh my God, good riddance. I want to do architecture because I don't want to do anything that has to do with pure academics.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to CPT Ahmedabad. My parents didn't even know I was going there. I just took a train and then a bus journey, and I went to the girlfriend. And I walked into SEP Ahmedabad, and I just stood there and I said, wow, this is where I want to be. I want to study architecture and I want to do it right here. So I went, I punched their signature, I did my entrance exam, and then by God's place got in. And then I just packed my bags and I came to Ahmedabad, and the rest is history.
You spoke in one interview about what turned your life around was jewelry design.
Yes, yes.
How comes?
So I'll tell you what happens when I started doing my thesis because we needed to do a graduation thesis. So I was always interested in architecture at an urban level, community level, urban design. And I wanted to study something to do with Old Delhi and Old Lahore,
Mm-hmm.
and try and do a comparative analysis of the two cities. But I didn't have the resources to do that. And I did many different formats, and I felt I wasn't getting anywhere. I was just getting a bit muddled with the whole thing. And then suddenly, it's just this opportunity came. Somebody had something. I designed a little bit of jewelry, and I did an exhibition with a friend, and I enjoyed it. And I said, let me do this. So I actually put my thesis away, and then I started doing jewelry design. I loved every minute of it. So it was semi-precious jewelry, and a lot of it was made with hand, using lots of different types of beads, stones, silver remnants, gold remnants. And I did that for 2 years. I even exported it. And then suddenly one day I said, oh my God, I have to be an architect. So I packed up the jewelry and reopened my thesis. And I got back to it with a very, very fresh mind. a very new perspective to the whole thing. And then my thesis went like a breeze. And I was very happy with what I did eventually.
And sort of, you also are CPT graduate.
And in fact, I just wanted to add, I think one of the things when Sonali says she walked into CPT and says, wow, I want to be here, I think one of the reasons was because she saw me that day also.
So you not only are a successful architecture firm, you're also a successful couple, let's call it. You know?
I like to believe that, yes.
Yeah. But when I read about you, I said, your background and your story start the same way as Steve Jobs, in a garage playing musical chairs.
Absolutely.
And tell me about that. It's fascinating.
You know, I think very, very enjoyable days. After we graduated from CEPT, I lived, my family had a home in Delhi, in Basant Vihar, and we had two garages, and we were not using both. And we were, you know, struggling to sort of make the firm work. So we said, why pay rent anywhere? And my father said, you know, you can use one of the garages as your office. So we were able to fit three tables into that office. And we were three partners in those days. There was Sonali, myself, and Khushru was our third partner. And a few months later, we actually employed our first architect in the firm. And we suddenly realized that, wow, you know, now we have a problem, but there's no place for a fourth table. So we had to make sure that one of the three of us was out, you know, at a site or at a meeting, to be able to allow the fourth person who we had employed to actually sit down and do some work. So yeah, interesting days. But and then we sort of graduated from there to a smaller office and sort of moved on.
What going into architecture?
What got me into architecture?
Yeah.
Actually, a bit of an accident, because my father was an engineer, and I grew up in a home where we only spoke about engineering. And the year I graduated, the engineering college said, you know, we can only take you in after 6 months. We can't take you in immediately. So I said, a friend of mine was going to the architecture school in Ahmedabad to do the exam. I said, you know what, I'll come along also. So I went there, did the exam, I got in, and I started doing architecture. 6 months later, you know, my dad rang me up and said, you know, now it's time for you to move to the engineering college. And I said, you know what, Dad, I don't want to move. I've done 6 months of this. I realized that this is really what I want to do. And so I stayed on, and that's how I did architecture. But you know, it was always my dad was an engineer. It was always a joke after that, whenever we were traveling anywhere. And if we saw a bad building, I'd say, you know, Dad, that building was probably designed by an engineer and not an architect. And he would have a good laugh about it.
You were going to say something earlier.
I was going to say that when we started our office in this garage, there was no air conditioning because we couldn't afford it. And there was not enough space for a ceiling fan because the roof was really low. And it used to be like extremely warm inside. So very often I used to say that if it is 42 degrees outside, it's probably 44 degrees inside, you know. And we used to have one like a pedestal fan, and we used to like fan ourselves in front of it and go back to it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What memory do you have of work with Satish Gujarat?
Oh, you know, I think the best memories I have is when he did the Belgian embassy. And he actually, I was good at drawing, you know, we used to call them axonometrics. And if you've seen a Satish Gujarat building, you know, it's all about arches. And to try and draw an arch in an axonometric is quite a difficult task. So I spent hours doing these drawings, but he was a very interesting person to work with, because I think he was a creative genius. I mean, and I think a true artist, because he didn't have any single, I mean, it was not that he just painted, he was a sculptor. And then he said, you know, I need to bring this form of art into buildings also. So I think the buildings he really designed were really pieces of art. So it was a very different perspective, you know, from what I learned at college. or even my stint in Australia for 1 year. So this was a very, I would say, a different uh, type of architecture. And I think it's something that really opened my eyes that, there are, other than straight lines, there are lots of other forms that you can explore in architecture.
You are the man they've got the absolute pleasure to be designing the very first Vivanta by Taj.
Yes.
And nobody knows this. And this is very important too, together with my friend Raymond Bixon, which I know him very well.
Okay.
Is tell me the experience of the first Vivanta by Taj, which is now is being rolled out everywhere, even around the world. Not
So, so I must mention here that the Vivanta Bataj was a collaboration. Yes. With a very close friend of mine, Mr. Wang Shuman from Wow Designs, his head of it. And we were fortunate that on that project, we actually were commissioned to do the architecture, interiors, and landscape. So I think the Wow's firm was very good at landscape also. They brought that to the expertise to the table. But, it was quite a challenge because we had actually a restriction of designing a very low building. So normally hotels, they go up a little taller. We had to sort of design under 25 meters. So we designed these three floors with rooms. So we actually had about 70 keys per floor, which is quite unusual for a 210 key hotel. And we had so very often we joke and we say this is really a ground scraper and not a skyscraper. But I think the interesting thing about it was that Taj was, I think, very flexible in this product compared to some of their previous products. And I think they allowed us to experiment with the Bangalore climate and with forms. And I think that's the result. That's why we have the result that we have.
Mr. Ratan Tata himself was.
Yeah, so I think many people don't know that Ratan Tata was an architect. And actually, because this was the first Vivanta that was being, coming into the Taj stable, he was also very interested with that, and he took interest in the project. And yes, Raymond Bixon, of course, we spent a lot of time discussing this with him. In Bangalore. It was in Whitefield in Bangalore, inside a technology park. So that was the other nice thing that, we knew we were designing really for young people. And we let the architecture and the interiors really talk about that. So, we used a lot of color. We used, unusual, interesting forms. There was this combination of exposed concrete and sort of pixelated glass. So, yeah, it was a very nice. So that was really the first hotel project that I ever did.
Then from there, you went to the West in Gurgaon.
Yes.
And Starwood, so many. Hilton as well.
Yeah, Hilton. And here in Aerocity, we did the Holiday Inn also.
Yes.
We did the Lemon Tree Hotel. So, yes, I think that was, as I said, I learned a lot on that particular project. But hospitality is something that I realized later that was definitely one of my favorite project types. And I think the reason for that is that, hotels, it may be, in terms of definition, the same project type, but each hotel is so different because, there are different geographical issues, there are different social issues. And I think that's what makes it very interesting to work on hotel projects.
30 years later, more than 200 projects. That's very important. And I was fascinated also, Sonali, you were featured on the 20 best architects in India for this book, Reflections. Member of the Delhi Art Commission, Delhi Conservation Society, Women in Business, many of these associations. And all this, I think, I read an article of Camellia House in Gurugram, the villa of 9,500 square feet villa. And I look at the picture and say, oh my God, what a place. They defined it as one of the most remarkable design journey ever seen. Tell me that project.
So, a home.
Apartment.
It's an apartment.
It's an apartment.
It's an apartment. But these apartments are large and they come completely as a bare shell.
Mm.
So when a person is buying something at that price point, they don't want to be like their neighbor. They want to be whatever they are, or they want to be something which is aspirational, you know. So for me, I love doing a home project because primarily I think it is trying to define a lifestyle for a lot of people. And I love doing that. So for me, a home is everything that I would love to do for myself, is what I would do for others. So I get very invested in a home. And I get so invested that even later when I go back, I keep putting things in order. I keep moving things around because it's something that I have a great passion for. So I think these homes are um, completely, now we have taken interior to a very different level altogether, because number one, we are looking at completely smart homes. These are normally fully automated, security, whether it's a standalone house or an apartment. A certain level of smart features are always integrated. There are certain basics which maybe earlier on used to be as luxury, but now are part of a standard offering, like the way your air conditioning is done, your air purification, etc., is all part of a standard offering now. Lighting is another very important subject, I feel, both architectural and decorative. And architectural lighting is a subject which I think not many, uh, I would say, even users are that aware of. And I feel it's our job sometimes to educate a client in a certain discipline, because it is so important. Architectural lighting can make or break a good interior, you know. So that's another thing that we get into in a lot of detail. And what really I think is very important to me is just the way every single element in any space, whether it's a commercial space or a residential space, comes together, whether it is texturing, colors, materials, the different genre. Even if you want to make it eclectic, how do you put it together? And that is what would create, I would say, make or break a good space.
How important is sustainability? Because yesterday in the interview I had, some of your friends and colleagues were saying that in the last 10 years, no client have asked about it. They mention it, but there is no real commitment to stick to it. What's your views?
So I'll tell you, when I think Sohrab would have a different thing to say than me, because at an architectural and I would say at a nation building level, it's a different story. When it comes to boutique projects or these very, very luxury sort of homes, uh, people are not thinking about it. It is not, I think today, even now, uh, people are not looking at responsible luxury. People are looking at luxury more to do with maybe brands, names,
The status.
as a status, you know. According to me, what is really important is responsible luxury and the concept and perception of luxury uh, in a certain society, because that society is, according to me, a trend-setting society. And if a trend of responsible luxury is brought in, I think it would really make a statement. But unfortunately, I'm really working towards it, but I don't think we have gotten there, if you ask me. Because if somebody asks me, what is luxury? Is it a good car? I said, no. For me, it's an electric car. It's a metro. It's the mass transit. It's the walkability. That is luxury, you know, to be able to do that in a city. So, I think the perception of luxury needs to change somewhere.
So yeah, as I said, as Sonali mentioned, sustainability, I think, is it's a sort of a buzzword. Everybody talks about it. But my experience has been that, unfortunately, it always gets linked to the commercial aspect, So when we talk to a client about, doing certain things in a project, unfortunately, I'd say probably less than 5% of the clients that I work with, and we work with a lot of people, actually wanted to, introduce some of the sustainable factors into a project because of their, they feel that this is a problem that the world is facing, and everybody needs to do their little bit to help resolve that. So they look at it purely from a commercial point of view. So when the government introduced that, if you do make your projects, they'd introduce different levels, and they were actually giving you more FSI if you did that. That's when certain clients started looking at it, the developer clients, because they felt that their users would rather have a more expensive marble on the floor than spend money on something that they're not able to see or perceive. We were able to, a lot of our corporate clients, who were building buildings for themselves, or projects where the owner was actually going to be paying the energy bills for the next 25 years, it was much easier to convince them about, using this. Even though you might spend a little more money up front, you're going to be able to recover it. So as I said, I think one of the few clients I remember who really did it because of his, wanting to give something back was an Iranian client that we had. And, he had a software company, and he said, you know what? I don't want the certification. I don't want that piece of paper. I want to do these things because I genuinely believe we need to introduce these things in our project, for the betterment of our children and our grandchildren. And so, as I said, very few clients did it for the, for the reason that it should be done. And unfortunately, most clients really just look at the commercial aspects.
Interesting. Yesterday, some of your colleagues were saying that an incredible remark that interior architects, or architects in general, within the fraternity, in a closed room or in a conference, we all know each other. The moment they step out, nobody knows about them. As opposed to fashion designers, everybody knows who they are. Is that reality?
No, it is true to a large extent.
Yeah.
Because I think the fashion community, or even the artist community, have worked very hard at bringing themselves out and putting themselves in the public domain and getting to be known. I think architects have not, according to me, come together in order to support each other to that extent, and promote the entire fraternity. It's not one or two or three people. I think the entire fraternity needs to be working towards this. Until such time that happens, we will never come out the way the art community has come out. I mean, today the prices of Indian art has gone through the roof. I mean, it's crazy, And so if the architectural fraternity has equal amount of talent, why should that talent not be priced at the same level, So, but that can only happen if the entire fraternity comes together.
It's interesting because I would imagine for a company like yours, more than 200 projects, develop the first brand of the flag of the Indian hospitality, and so forth. If you design a house like a flat like this Camellia house, and somebody sell it, that must, with your name on it, it must carry a premium. It must carry a premium there.
There are one or two developers who are selling their product on our name. So
absolutely,
that does happen, but I think it could have happened more.
Yeah, you need to shout louder.
Yes.
No, again, I think, it's got to do a little bit with a lot of developers, for some reason, believe that it's the international firms that which need to be really, sort of advertised in their projects, and that they feel that that brings a premium to the project. Now, I feel that yes, maybe there are certain project types where this might help. Maybe, if you're doing an airport, for example, maybe some of the larger international firms have done a lot more and maybe more adept at doing it. But if you're doing a residential development, I think we are far better equipped to actually do it. I remember receiving a drawing from an international firm for a developer that we were working with, where they had all the toilets and I think there were 4 toilets in that apartment, were being mechanically ventilated. I said, you know what? In India, you will never be able to sell an apartment if all your toilets have mechanical ventilation, because here, there are social issues. People like to see the sun. They like to see the natural air and ventilation in their toilets and kitchens also. So I said, forget it. I told the developer, you will never sell this project. So I think we are far better equipped to really, provide good design solutions, for these projects. And why should you try and really tout an international name? And half the people who are buying your apartments may not even know that name. So I think it's a false sense of accomplishment that some of these people have when they actually try to do this.
It's interesting because your thesis was, a university was in urban design.
Yeah.
But it's actually the one taking care more of architecture inside the firm. You more interior, so you both have those skills, and
I, of course, I do boutique architecture, and I do a lot of interior, and I love it. But I have to say that my passion still lies with urban design. And when I was a part of the Delhi Urban Arts Commission, I got an opportunity to actually realize some of my dreams, I would say, because we did a lot of projects which were at city level projects, which were completely apart from the mandate of the Urban Arts Commission. But we formed a small design hub, and we took on projects which was on a suo moto basis. And they were live projects, a lot of them. And I'm very happy to say that the government supported it. And I'm grateful for that. And we actually did a lot of very nice projects at concept level. Things like we don't have pedestrian ways in the city. I mean, as a child, I used to cycle to school. But today, I don't know whether I will come back home in one piece if I go cycling. I bought a cycle to go to my office, but I don't have the guts to do that. So, what has changed? Why is the pedestrian now relegated to the back bench? So these are the kind of projects that we took up, and to create alternate pedestrian ways. So they were more community related projects, how to make a better place for us to live in, how to be able to walk. Walking is sustainability. So I always like to look at sustainability at a city level, at a community level. And that's where my passion still lies.
how do you manage all this energy every day for the last 40 years?
I think each project brings its new own challenges. In our firm, we did a lot of commercial projects for the first 30 years. And about 5 years ago, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, we had a life-changing opportunity to work on a university project. And I realized that when we were working on this university project, that, at last we were creating spaces for people. In the commercial projects, it's, every square foot. In fact, nowadays, every square inch needs to be utilized because every square inch yields a great amount of money to the developer. But in the institutional projects, nobody talks about any of these things about ground coverage or FSI. It's really creating spaces for the user. And in this case, the user was the students, the faculty, and it, for the first time, I felt when we completed some of these projects, it's still ongoing, but lots of it is complete. when we would go back to the university and talk to the students, it was a beautiful experience. We are actually, the feedback we got, we really understood whether what we had conceived was really being used in that way or not. And I'm happy to say that in a lot of cases it was. So I think, even the type of projects that I would like to do in the future is definitely more institutional work. As I said, I enjoy hospitality, so that's another project type. But I think now we're at the stage where maybe we would like to be a little more careful about choosing the projects that we do in the future.
Why was it life changing?
Well, it was life changing because, I suddenly realized that, you know, the first 30 years, it was all the commercial aspects of the project and not the softer part of it, not how the individual responded to the project that you had designed. So I think to be able to actually go back and interact with the students, interact with the people, and actually see that the spaces that you've designed. And, I always say a lot of the learning today happens outside the classroom. So we were not bothered what really the classroom was. It's the spaces in between the classrooms, both the internal spaces, it's the spaces in between buildings that we put a lot of emphasis on. And as I said, when we saw that, yes, these spaces are being used that way, it gave us a lot of feeling of accomplishment. And, in a commercial project, you really, I don't think, get to experience that like you do in these institutional projects, which is why I felt it was to an extent life-changing.
During this project, have you come across moments where you said, I've not thought about that? Because you was probably...
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's the other nice thing, because if we are doing a hostel building and, and we go back and, the kids tell us, we don't like this, or, this is not correct for what you've done. When we do the next hostel building, we get an opportunity to change that, even in a classroom or even in a learning space. So I think also this is possible only if you have the right client, And I think in this case, we had a wonderful client who also wanted to, it was a 40-year-old university, which suddenly they decided to revive and, contemporize. And I think so, if the client is on the same wavelength, you're on the same wavelength, you form a great team together.
In the context of gender equality, I know you're very active on women in business. Has the industry done enough to push girls at the top of their profession?
When I joined architecture school, in a batch of 25, we were 7 girls. By the time I finished architecture, I think the proportion was 50-50. And I think now it's probably even more. So I think from that point of view, I see a lot of younger women doing things, coming out and, taking a step forward, which is really wonderful. And personally, I always try to support if somebody has a family issue or something. If there is something we can do to accommodate, I would do that, because that would be a priority for me. Because I come from a family of 3 sisters. And my 2 older sisters are also 2 professionals. One is a pediatrician, one is a very prominent lawyer. And I think that because of the way we were brought up and we were given to believe that you need to fend for yourself. There's nobody going to look after you, And you better make sure that you find your way in your profession. So we were never given an opportunity or a chance to let go. We always had to be sort of doing, working, getting on, And that was the basic attitude with which we grew up. And I think that is what I try to impart to people, at least the women who I come across in my office,
So what is the advice you would give to a young female interior architect that come and work for you?
First of all, I tell them that, listen, you need to be 100% here, if not 110%. I mean, you cannot have, when you are at work, you are at work. Your professionalism and your commitment to the office, to your project, to your client is primary. And that cannot be unless there is a situation which is an extreme. You cannot let other things take over. So I think your professionalism is primary. And as long as you have that, as long as you have the right attitude, you can work through it.
Wow. No, on gender equality, I'll tell you a quick story. Early on in our firm working together, we were doing a home. It wasn't a large home in Delhi. And, we used to sort of choose in those days who did which project. And we decided that that project was going to be done by Sonali. And a few months later, the client comes to me and says, Sonali is working on the project. And I said, yes, she's working on the project. He said, I thought you were going to be working on the project. I said, no, I never gave you that impression. He said, I would really prefer if you worked on the project. And I think it was purely a gender issue. It was nothing.
He was mean to me.
Yeah.
He was nasty and mean.
Yeah. But I said, I'm sorry, either we don't do the project or Sonali continues doing the project. We are not going to, the project did mean a lot to us because we were not doing that much work in those days, but we still took that decision that either she does the project or we don't do the project. But I think things have changed. I think, as Sonali said, there are lots more girls today than there are boys in the architecture school. So I think the profession has sort of begun to accept it. But where I still see a problem is with some of the other trade, like the contractors. The contractors sometimes have a problem dealing with a woman rather than dealing with a man. So while the client is very happy to have whether it's a lady or a man working on the project, some of the other associated trades still have a problem, So that's where there are still some issues. But I think as a profession, I think it's very accepted today. And it's on par.
But also, I think it was one of your kind of 3 remarks that saying the unorganized sectional construction is a major problem.
It is. Because as Sohrab is saying, the entire contracting as a business is still largely in the unorganized sector. There are some larger firms, of course, who are doing large projects, which are fine. But at a smaller level, it is still extremely unorganized. Getting systems into place. Because what is contracting? Contracting is following systems, making sure that your quality checks are there, your procurement processes are in place, you have the right personnel at site and at the right times. It's only that. But when somebody just jumps around and gets into something, they don't know that. So the formal training that should be imparted in order to educate people to get into an organized sector, I think is still missing in a lot of the trades, what I call the métier. So the métiers don't have that acceptability as white-collar jobs very often, Take the plumbing or the electrical works or the carpentry works. They need to now rise up. And these métiers need to be more organized and more structured to be able to deliver products which are at par. I must say that a lot of it has moved and a lot more has happened. So today we do have products which are really good quality. But there is an equal amount which is still not there, And that's what needs to happen.
One of your recurring sentences here and there in all the interviews and all the speech engagement is the architecture is the mother of all art and design.
Yes.
And talking of mother, I know you have a very special mother. You told me a small story there. I would like to tell the people watching us and, about your Your mother going to business at 91.
Yes. So I grew up as children, we always saw our father, who was a larger than life figure. He reached the top of his profession and all that. And my mother was always there for him and for us. She always played a supporting role. But after he passed away, she was 91 years old when he passed away, and she had lost a partner of 68 years, which was quite traumatic, you know. And so she was at an all-time low. And we sort of encouraged her to do things. And I said, do what makes you happy. And feeding people made her very happy. All her life, she wanted to feed people, you know. So she started cooking and, you know, started a small cloud kitchen. And it then grew into a very nice business. And today she is going to be 98 next month. And she is running this little business called Nani's Nasta, which means Nani's Snacks. Nani means grandmother, mother's mother. And now she's known as Nani by everybody. People know her for herself. They do not know her as Mrs. Bhagwati or Justice Bhagwati's wife. They know her as Prabhavati Bhagwati, who is the owner and the force behind Nani's Nasta.
So you know what is coming, yeah?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think, and I'm a great, I'm her official taster. So whenever she actually introduces a new product, and, that shows in the size really also. But I think she's a remarkable woman. She is somebody that we all look up to. And I think we have so much to learn from her. And I think the most important thing that I've learned from her is a positive outlook to life, And when to do whatever you do it yourself, I think, so it's been a great learning for me also. As I said, we live together because she lives in an apartment in the same building that we live in. So I'm able to interact a lot with her. I spend a lot of time with her. And I think, yeah, it's been a remarkable journey. And I think, again, we've at various times during this interview, we've talked about the commercial aspect. She's doing this because she loves to do it. Every single rupee that she earns on this goes to charity. She's not interested in, anything for herself. So it's completely selfless. And I think when you do something which is selfless, the product is always, the best it can be.
It's interesting because we're talking about passion, we're talking about creativity, and I want to link that to a topic that everybody talks about, AI, artificial intelligence. And my question to you is, in the context of architecture, do you think that AI can substitute the human creativity?
The simple answer is no. Okay. And the reason why I say no is that, I think at the end of the day, a machine is being taught to do something by a human being. Okay. And so the human being that is actually putting in that effort into a machine has a limited knowledge of that human being. Whereas I think different individuals, their creativity has no boundary really, and you can't put all of that into a machine. So I think at the end of the day, yes, if you're doing a data center or you're doing something very mechanical as a project, maybe an AI solution would be a viable solution. But if you're actually looking at, I use the word building spaces for people, I don't think you will be able to get that through AI.
I personally think that AI is a fantastic tool. And I think it's a tool that we all need to continuously adapt to because it can do a lot for us. I think the kind of time that it sort of reduces in getting something done helps draw. If you have a thought, it I think can help putting it into uh, actuality. So there are so many things that AI can do for us. So I think AI needs to be your slave, not your master.
There are two areas that I see you going towards saying the in pursuit of perfection, with AI, because you're very passionate about, say, the good documentation helps with time and cost management. And on the other hand, also the right synthesis is the key for good design. So, would AI helping addressing these two areas?
I think the first one definitely, because processes, documentation, AI should 100% be used for that. I mean, human error can be reduced, minimized to a large extent. As far as synthesizing ideas and thoughts is concerned, I think there too AI can be used because uh, when you want to start looking at different cultures, different crafts, different spaces, how to bring it all together. I think AI can help you do a lot, but assimilate a lot, but the eventual synthesis will have to come from you. AI is there to give you all the support that is needed.
Really a tool.
We talked about many things, and I'm sure that all your projects are unique, and you put as equal passion to all your clients. But are there any project that I know you talked about the university one, but beyond that you guys look back and say we're really proud of that for whatever reason? It doesn't have to be because of the project.
Yeah. Well, one project, and I think it would be different because, as I told you, we work on different projects. We had done quite a few years ago. We did the NASCOM headquarters in. It was not in Delhi; it was in Noida. It's a small building, but again, it's a building that I'm very happy with because there was something unique. It was not a typical office building. The two lower floors of this building was NASCOM is an agency which has the interests of all the software and computer companies in the country. So the lower two floors of this building were really for the people. Almost anybody could sort of walk in and use those spaces, the library, the some of the other areas in that. And then the top four floors was the offices for this body called NASCOM. And I think what we were able to, what was given to us as part of the program, how that was achieved architecturally, I think was successful. And I've been back to the building many times, after we completed it. So it was an interesting project to work on, and it's been an interesting post-mortem also.
For me, one of the buildings that I really enjoyed doing was the headquarters for Adobe Systems when they first came here. So Adobe was about graphic software, colors, a lot of creativity in its product, And the people who were also working there were all a very young demographic. So we decided to do this building that actually talked of Adobe, talked of color. And it was a very linear long site. So we did this building where the entire frontage was these colored waves in the three primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. And they sort of went in and out of the building. And the building sort of was this dark, solid mass, monochromatic, and these colored waves went in and out of the building, and it defined the building, And it was just a very simple concept. But I think it just worked very well. And I think to date, the whole concept holds because about almost 20 years later, they called us back to do a refurb of the whole building. So they said, we want to keep the facade as it is, but talk of Adobe a little bit more, So we took the same red, yellow, and blue, but we broke it into pixels. So the entire red, it's all pixelated now because software, pixels, it's synergetic. And we took that whole concept of pixels into the interior as well.
What is this building?
It's in Noida.
In Noida, yeah.
Need to see.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
I'm not curious to see all this.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And the day you're gonna slow down, I'm not gonna say retire. I'm not gonna say hang in your boots because after you told me about your mother, there's no chance. How would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered for whatever contribution I can give to the community. Um, because when we work as architects for any building or any client, it is that client or that person who will remember us. But when you give back to the community, it is a larger whole. And this, I think, I've learned from my father because he was the architect of what we call the legal aid program in India, which was for the people. And I think I have, in some way, in my subconscious, always been influenced. And I used to write a blog, a page from your city. Now I want to restart a more sort of visual blog, which is again to do with city of the why. Why is this like this and why not? So I'm going to call it the why and the why not. And whatever way you can do something, whether to bring some kind of consciousness into the urban dweller or create a better space or create community place, anything you can do is something which I want to be remembered by.
Well, I think what I would really like to be remembered for is that the buildings we created, the spaces that we created, have given joy to people, and that people are happy in those spaces. Also, I think one thing that's very important to both of us is that we've always felt that integrity is a very important aspect of our firm, at least. And I think I would like to be remembered by my clients that we provided a service with integrity, with passion, and honesty.
And why are India designers incredible?
Uh, it, According to me, I think India is a bowl of culture. I mean, every place you go to, and I think a lot of us don't even know our country well enough because we haven't been to um, every part of the country. But we were in Nagaland, and look at the art and culture there. I was in Bhuj. Look at the art and culture there. Punjab, South, Gujarat, every place you go to has its own art, culture, craft, architecture. And I think there is so much that gets into our subconscious without even realizing it. And somewhere, I think we tend to bring that out as a part of design, when you do it consciously. And when that happens, I think we are able to take the best from whatever is happening in the world internationally, but keep our roots intact and bring in all our heritage and amalgamate it and create an end product, a design style which is so unique, which is so special, and something that is going to be there forever. And this kind of eclectic amalgamation is what, according to me, sets Indian designers apart.
Actually, at the end of the day, I think for any designer, wherever you are in the world, you are a product of the environment that you grew up in, and you're a product of the environment that you practice in. If we take Europe, it's made up of lots of different smaller countries. So India is really, I mean, every state is almost like a different country. It has, like Sonali said, it is a different culture, there are different habits. And so I think being Indian, sometimes we get, and when we actually interact with our colleagues, when you go to college, when you go to universities, you're interacting with students from different parts of the country. So you actually, right from that stage itself, you really get to know what different cultures are all about, what different practices are all about. And I think you really then start, so that really goes into your DNA. And then when you actually start practicing as a designer, it's where all of this that you've learned, you're able to express. And I think because we've been exposed to so many different cultures and so many different things, that probably that's what helps maybe a designer from India to be set apart from, say, somebody who's lived in a very or grown up in a very confined environment.
Is a true representation of unity in diversity.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is incredible. So my final question, which unfortunately coming to an end, I can stay here talking to you forever because it's amazing stories. And if I put a huge canvas, white canvas, on top of the tallest building on the world, Burj Khalifa, what message would you write on it?
What makes?
What message
What makes?
would you write on it?
My message would be true to whatever you do.
I would say imagination is 1% and it takes 99% hard work to make it happen.
Wow, that's a very powerful. And as the guys of the Hot 100, they say that you left an incredible mark on architecture and design, both of you. But I must admit, you left an incredible mark also on all of us. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been a very enjoyable morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.